Last month I visited Japan again for an opening ceremony of a new hospital at Hokkaido. It was Chinese New Year and there were many visitors around, and there is a saying going, the more visitors, the more accidents. That night, right after the party, 2 patrons were sent to our hospital. Car accident. It was due to the roads being slippery. The car lost control and spun 40 meters across the road and smashed into a tour bus. Luckily, there were no tourists inside or around the bus at the time, but the bus driver had his lower body crushed where the car had smashed. The driver of the car was an old man heading to a wedding ceremony. Information from the police said that he stepped on the brake too suddenly, that the rear tire slipped. Very unfortunately, the car driver died immediately. That night, the family of the car driver came over, and we had to tell them the tragic news. Meanwhile, the bus driver was rushed to do an immediate operation. We needed to observe him and decide whether or not to do another operation some days later when he awoke. We found that the bus driver's family had not arrived, and we realized that he was living alone and had no family. The bus driver didn't wake for almost a week. His company's co-workers and managers did visit, but none of them stayed for too long since he was not in good shape. The doctor decided to do another operation since time was limited and they couldn't wait for him to decide. We had to think the best for any patrons. The operation did not go well. From the doctor's information, the patient was bleeding badly during the operation and the health condition of him was not so good. The man died that evening, making it the 2nd death in our hospital. That night, when I went to tidy up the patient's room for the next day's use, I saw a person facing the wall, mumbling to the wall. I tried to go and ask him who he was, but I was stopped by a nurse whom had worked at the hospital for years. She pulled me over and told me never to speak to such people. I suddenly realized that the person I saw looked just like the injured bus driver. I may have just experienced the hospital's first ever ghost story.
This happened about 2 weeks ago to me. I took snips of everything. I'm 14 years old currently, and here's my story. I was home alone finally. My parents were invited to a party. I was home alone, as you know. When I was getting really bored, I never watched the TV because I found it quite boring. I went upstairs and I decided to go on my laptop. I logged into my Gmail and I had a new email. It was from some weird email address I'd never seen before. It was just different letters and numbers. It said, "Hey, are you free today? Maybe we can hang out. Call me. I'll text you my number. I know yours, don't worry." I was creeped out. Maybe it's a chain mail or some type of spam message, I thought. Just then, my phone vibrated. I got a new message. It was from some weird number, and it said, "Do you want to hang out? I can give you my address." I didn't want to reply to this message. I got another one. "I see you." I replied, "What is the color of my shirt?" Then I saw something that was terrifying. The person said blue. I looked down at my blue colored shirt and my eyes were wide. It was probably a guess, I thought. I said, "What is my hair color and my eye color?" It said brown. It was true. My eyes were brown and so was my hair. I was fucking paranoid after this. I looked out every window. At the corner of my eye, I could see someone staring at me through a window in the basement. I looked at the window, panicking. The man ran away. I ran to the police station, gasping for air. I told them what happened and showed them the messages for proof. They never caught him. I don't know why he was threatening me. I don't know how he got my address. I don't know how he even got my number. Whoever he was probably a weirdo stalker.
On September 30th, 2015, I went to the grocery store to pick up a few things to complete lunch and dinner that day. I purchased 1 purple onion, 1 Vidalia onion, a pack of thin bread slices, a carton of eggs, and 1 brown mustard. That afternoon, I made a sandwich using 1 slice of purple onion. I cut off the root end and took 1 additional slice for my sandwich. I returned the purple onion to my refrigerator bin for later use. The next morning, I opened my fridge. The onion was no longer in the bin. It was on the shelf where I first placed it when I initially brought it home. And it was whole and uncut. No one had entered my home to replace the onion. I stood at the door of my fridge with a chill going up my spine and down my arms. I stepped back to think and immediately went to my garbage to confirm I used the purple onion the day before. There I found the butt end of the purple onion I cut off earlier. It may not be a significant story with a major leap in time, but the weeks before this event I had begun researching string theory and asking out loud if there was anyone who could hear me within another dimension to try and communicate with evidence. I don't want to sound crazy, but until it happens to you, everyone who experiences something similar is a flake. This really happened. I took pictures, and I wish I had the ability to match the DNA of the onion to the end, as I still have them. I can't get past the event, and it has completely reoriented my life focus.
Only 1 week was left of my 3-month duty in the Lighthouse. I was usually in the company of Herman, my lifelong friend and colleague. Tragically, he had died just 2 days before in a gruesome accident. A freak wave had engulfed us both whilst on the observation deck, sending him cascading down where his body was dashed on the rocks below, whilst I hung on for dear life to the guardrails before eventually pulling myself back up to safety. I awaited the arrival of a support vessel to relieve me from duty, and in the meantime wandered through the corridors of the lighthouse entirely on my own. Or so I thought. Just 2 days after the accident, I started to see a mysterious figure appear. Dressed in lighthouse keeper's clothes and smoking an odd pipe, the figure appeared to be cleaning the huge lens of the lighthouse, climbing the enormous spiral staircase of the lighthouse, or sometimes cooking in the lighthouse kitchen. His appearance unnerved me, and when I tried to speak to him, he just ignored me and walked past in eerie silence. When the support vessel arrived, I was so happy to see the crew that I ran up to greet them, but they simply passed me by and walked towards my ghostly pipe-smoking companion, who took them to the edge of the lighthouse itself and pointed down towards the rocks. I followed their gaze to see what they were looking at, and there lay the battered and bloody remains of 2 bodies. One was that of my friend, Herman, and the other belonged to me.
A few years back, I can honestly say that I had one of the most dangerous jobs. I was a pizza delivery man in Cleveland, Ohio. One night, I received an order that had special instructions to come into the house and leave the pizza on the stove. I thought that was pretty odd. I told my boss, and he said go ahead with it. I had to remind him that I've been robbed twice and shot at, but I really need the money, so I did it. I pulled up to a sketchy neighborhood. That's nothing new. I thought to myself, not again. As I walked to the door, I had an uneasy feeling. I got to the door and I saw a note, and it said, "Doors open. Take the pizza to the kitchen." I walked in and all the lights were off except for the kitchen. When I walked in and I placed the pizza on the stovetop, just something didn't feel right. I started to walk out and I heard the door open upstairs, followed by footsteps. Someone peeked around the wall on the stairs and yelled down the stairs, and they said, "Come upstairs, I have your tip." Then out of nowhere, I heard the scream of a woman. Right after that, I heard a man tell her, "Shut up before I choke you." That was my cue to book it out of there. I got into the car and I saw a girl banging on the upstairs window along with screaming. Then a man grabbed her from behind and she disappeared out of view. When I got back to the pizza joint, I told my boss. He called the police and I quit my job. I had way too many close calls working as a pizza delivery guy in Cleveland. I've been robbed, shot at, and now this. Never again will I do that. I never asked what happened with that situation. And honestly, I don't care to know.